Hi guys, good morning. This is chapter 10, Advanced Variances, and I'm just making the this is the video for the class that we had. Okay, right. So let's begin. This is chapter 10. Just make this bigger. So we're going to be going through the text, so make sure you have access to your text. This is chapter 10. And a lot of what we're going to be looking at today is going to boil down to really variance analysis. So, I mean, ultimately, we understand that in management accounting, that typically one of the main purposes of management accounting is control, reward, responsibility, and hence variance analysis comes in as a critical tool to enable us manage this situation. So, a number of things that we will be looking at, but in ultimate summary of these objectives, we will be looking at a series of variances that are typically used. And starting off with some of the more traditional ones that you might have seen before. The new ones will be this business with material mix and material yield and what they mean. But ultimately, and we will be discussing, of course, the relationships between them and how they're used to make decisions. That's ultimately where we're going. So it's not just about the numbers. And then, so some of the newer ones you're going to be seeing on the sales mix, quantity variances, operational variances. So those will come later towards the end of the video. But at first, we're going to go through your traditional ones. Ultimately, a lot of these variances, again, enable us to do better in terms of just in time and enable better total quality management. I mean, of course, there is the issue of the relationship of standards and behavioral problems and setting standards. And I believe earlier on in the course we discussed this idea of ideal, attainable, current, and basic standards, and the effect of setting standards on motivation, if you like. And so we will look a little bit at that. Typically, we recognize favorable variances with F and adverse with A. And again, ultimately, in order to bring real change to a situation, we want to always understand what those variances are, and that's what we're going to be looking at. So let's begin. So really, this story really begins with the idea of the flexed budget. Now, this is most organizations, when they set budgets, will go to the first budget that's always set, as you can imagine, must be the sales budget. And when I say the sales budget, this has come in through market research, existing contacts and clients. So we must get our sales book in order to know what we will be producing for the year. So we will sort of study the market, basically carry out some market analysis, carry out some general probably strategic analysis to understand, get a better picture of demand. Now, we might have been using some of the stuff we will, I think, we probably have done already, where we look at executive information systems that we're already using these systems to kind of tell us what's going on in the market, feeding in to give us a good understanding of what demand is likely to be like. Will give us an understanding of what that figure will be. Who knows? You might have some new contracts as well. And based on that, we will then develop ultimately, this is really part of a budgeted income statement and statement of financial position, like a master budget based on an assumed output. So that's referred to as a fixed budget. This thing right here is a fixed budget. And so in this, I'm going to add some zeros even here, just to kind of exaggerate what's happening here. So somehow we believe that we will sell 1.3 million units. This is what the sales team have come back with. So this is our sales team who've come back with this thanks to the market research. Now, what actually happens here is you only sell 1,200. Now, let's be clear. The reason you're sold 1,200 is not because the demand was 1.3 million and your production team only made 1,200, as in terms of what they could make. No. These guys here made 1,200 because technically most production teams will work to demand, right? So in a just-in-time environment, in an efficient environment, when the demand comes in, they make the product. So I almost want to say assumption, the fact is that they can't, the production team cannot predict demand. They literally work to you. And this figure could be anything. Who knows? Due to the nature of the information that comes in to feed it. So, so first of all, comparing, so the question here becomes, from a sales point of view, of course it makes sense to compare and ask questions as to why do you have a demand schedule of 1.3 million and you only sold 1,200? That's fair. From a production point of view, it'll be ridiculous to kind of compare this material cost of 1.3 million and 1,250. I mean, this won't be 50 anymore. And then say, oh, production team, what's gone wrong? No. So we need to fundamentally find a way to, if we wish to judge the sales team, that's good. If we wish to judge the production team, that's also important. And we need to make sure we find a way to do both things. So to judge the sales team, yes, of course, this makes sense to compare this. But to judge the production team, we need to what's referred to as flex the budget, to sort of understand, to, if you like, to turn our attention to the inputs that go into making the product. And so we can then carefully analyze how well or how badly the production team did. So, which is why we come to this area of a flexed budget. And then we sort of argue that, well, given that we know what the standard cost of making a unit is, so we can, I mean, I know that from this point of view, if here I know literally I expect you to spend £1 on one unit, I'm just going to create one unit here. If you sold one unit, I know that you intend on selling each of them for £10. If you like, I know that's £2. That's £2, right? Isn't it? For unit. And then there's some variable costs, some variable overheads, and they're variable. So I could kind of calculate what 1.1, divide this by this to find what the overhead is per unit, and then I have a fixed cost. So what I then do is apply this standard cost per unit to the number of units I actually made, which is what's going on here. And when I do that, I will have revenue of 12, or I should have. So the argument is, what I've basically done is flexed the budget with the actual number of units. I've brought it into the same, I've kind of recalibrated, if you like, the budget to fit so that I can fairly compare it with the actual. And that's what we have here. So what you see me doing here now is this is what I should expect in terms of inputs at 1,200 units compared to what you actually did. And now the truth is I can come out with really a fair assessment in terms of variance analysis. So that's the first bit in terms of revision and this idea. And I sort of make a few notes here that we should be comparing the flex budget with the actual budget. And that's kind of the first thing. Okay, great. And I think what I'll do is I'll stop there. And then what I'm going to do is just so that they're short and sort of crisp. So you can look at that and then you can go into the next video. And in the next video, we're going to be looking at the first thing, which is the sales variance. So have your book as open as well, because this material is really coming out from your textbook. Okay, great stuff. See you in the next video.